when reading the book, that feeling of warmth, that feeling, that spark of energy wells up inside you enough to physically make changes. When I say physical, I mean everything that you do and think and say has a massive effect on your life. It may not seem like it, but
Welcome, Adam. Adam Zaks from A to Z Health. We're here today reviewing his latest book, which has just been released, Doctors Study Sickness, You Should Study Health. And there are so many how to, do a curl and a press up and health books on how to eat properly and what to eat and what not to, how and what's. But this book is profound. It's more motivational and inspirational from the point of why. Can you tell us a little bit about your motivations behind the book?
yeah, sure, Freddie. So thanks for the question. It's basically what happened with me in the health industry, where I was telling people a lot of what's and how's, and I was starting to see the eyes glaze over when it came to what I do and what I'm about. It seems that a lot of people, they don't look at those internal questions of why. And so when I start to ask them why they're doing what they're doing, people become unstuck. And therefore I become unstuck as a health coach, because if I don't address the why for people, when I'm starting to talk to them about the what's and the how's, it's not going to make sense for them specifically. So I fast tracked the book last year during lockdown. And it's been a concept in the works for about 4 or 5 years now. So managed to fast track it last year, and proud to have the finished product now.
Well, I find that you cover several topics in there, and one of the interesting things that I have got from the book so far is it's a real encouragement, not just for health, exercise, diet, things like that. It's holistic. It's a complete spectrum, like multi-dimensional viewpoint of what health is. And could you tell us your philosophy on what the rise to ultimate health is?
Sure. So there is no end goal with the rise to ultimate health. I say it's the infinite rise to ultimate health, because as you look back on your life, you might be in your last few breaths of your life, and you might still say to yourself, I would guarantee you'd still say to yourself, there's still a multitude of things to learn. You could never possibly learn all there is to learn. And so this idea of health is life, life is health, is a philosophy that I put to people, in that the words are interchangeable. And so if we exchange the word health for life, we're looking back on our life and realizing that there's still so much to learn. So the ultimate rise, the infinite rise to ultimate health is very much that. It's a never-ending journey.
Well, you often talk about the spectrum of the physiological, psychological, and the emotional, spiritual. There is so many multifacets to health. I used to look at it, oh, well, am I eating right? It always comes down to that, or am I doing exercise? But for you, it's about the whole expression of really getting more of life and all that you can get from it. So I think when people are not well, they're not present. And when I come to a situation of relating to other people, if I'm dealing with internal conflict, be it physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, I'm not truly present to that person or the moment I'm experiencing. So I know we're coming back to the psychological or spiritual dimension, but I would like to hear your take on how essential health is for tasting life.
Well, you can't actually have the tasting of life without your health is the short answer.
Mm.
The long answer is, as I said before, if we're going on to the what's in the hows without knowing the why, we're kind of, it's like looking for something without a map. You're you might be putting one foot in front of the other, and you might be experiencing life to a certain level, but you're going to experience it on a much higher level if you've got the map to that destination. And that destination, as I said, is infinite. It's a never ending journey, but at least you know the terrain by stating to yourself, why should I be healthy? Once you know why, you can actually then go about the what and the how, because you've got a clear path to take.
Cool, cool. I know from my perspective that you've led me into a path to realize that my age at 68, there's just so much more. I mean, a lot of people my age are winding down or feel they're on a slide. I feel very optimistic that in times to come, I'm going to even experience more of life than I have, because I've never addressed health as much as I do now. And I don't do it from a fear perspective or an avoidance of pain perspective. I deal with it from a hunger perspective. You've inspired me, not just through your book, but through knowing you for the last 9 years. You've inspired me to seek health out for the joy that it brings.
Well, it's been a very enjoyable friendship, and I guess I wrote the book in such a way where if someone was to read the book and someone who knows me, it feels like they're having a conversation with me, and I hope you got that from reading the book. For those who don't know me, I guess it's an introductory to some channels of thought that I go down. And I've done it in a creative way, I've done it in a scientific way, I've done it in a bit of a blend of both. But in the book, that you start to get to know me, and in the hope that we can have a chat someday about the book.
It's great that it's short and concise, and at the same time, it leaves a lot of open loops for thought. For instance, your A to Z health program, you've looked into every possible dimension into the areas of nutrition and health and nutritionals, exercise, sleep. The list is endless. You know, there's 26 categories in there. But at the same token, why would somebody be so curious about that? And I think that you inspire people to be more curious. And those who are curious do find things out. And they do delve deeper. So it's an introduction into your whole program. And it's an introduction into understanding, for instance, integrity is another way I see it, because you talk about systems in your book. And integrity means, is the system integral? Is the body integral? Is it integrated? And that's your thoughts, your habits, and your behaviors. Can you tell us a little bit about your overarching philosophy for approaching health in general?
Well, it needs to be complete. And so in the 30 chapters of the A to Z Health program, I do go through and I address all of the aspects of health that I believe is important for someone to understand and to practice. And so, as I said, you know, in explaining these things, it's not going to grab hold in a person as much as if they start to address the why are they doing it. You know, the why is the motivation. It's the thing that breeds itself. So why did I go and practice all those hours with the ball? It's because I wanted to be a better footballer. And so why do the A to Z Health program? It's because you want to be better as a human being. You want to feel the highs in life, and you want to understand the lows. You want to get more out of life and experience more. So why do it? Is the first question. This is something that everyone needs to answer for themselves, and it's questions that I ask throughout the book. Doctors study sickness, you should study health. And as you've understood, in reading the book now, you know, I'm not there to bash doctors. In fact, I'm studying to be one. So it's the idea of understanding systems. When you understand the systems, you can start to address things personally. And I've written the book. Another intention of the book is for people to take control of their own health, to not rely on these systems. So once you understand it, you can then actually do something about it. You can actually start to take responsibility for your own health. And that's so important to me, and what I like to put out into the world.
Well, I think from my perspective, one of the big takeaways was personal responsibility, that you might look out to other people for inspiration, direction, and learn things from other people. But ultimately, you have to be your own tutor, your own student of life. And the thing I got from it is I am responsible for my health, my well-being, my future trajectory. And all the external things, such as doctors and the environment and people's teachings, they're just resources for me to tap into. So the overarching philosophy I got from the book is take responsibility for my health. And the moment I did do that several years ago, which ultimately was inspired by you, Adam, in taking that responsibility, I had more locus of control, more success, and I'm more present to life. So I'm encouraging people to look into what's in the book, because it's an introduction. It opens your mind to more than one area. Some of those areas, can you tell us about what you're trying to inspire people to do, aside from just get curious? What sort of responsibilities do they need to take?
I've been speaking to a lot of people about waking up humanity. And what was said back by someone just recently is, do you really want to force people to wake up if they're not ready? And the answer is definitely no. The answer is, eventually, when they're ready, I'm there to help them in that transition. And so instead of being the preacher, I become a guide for those who want it. I'm there to walk with you when you're ready to take the walk. If you want to run, we speed up. So I'm there for that, very much so. For the people that are just on that borderline of transitioning into waking up, I can do a bit of a push with you. But for those who are definitely not ready for that, that's completely fine. And it's the time isn't right for them. So back to the sentiment, it's just, I want to help people to live better. And so that's the idea behind everything I do. I found that processes that I've put in place in my life has helped me a lot to live better, to feel better, to understand my emotions, to understand how to have more energy, to sleep more deeply, to have better relationships, to have better financial health. And, you know, just to live as ultimately as I can while I'm in the living state. And I can't help but share that with others.
I find that where I can really identify with you is you're actually wanting people to expand their consciousness, because if they have a limited consciousness and awareness, they can't fully taste life. They can only taste it to that extent. It's like a really good musician only playing over 1 or 2 octaves. It's just not like the whole keyboard's there and they're missing out. So from the perspective of knowing you and entertaining the ideas and philosophies behind the health that you've shown me, you've expanded my awareness, my consciousness, my bandwidth in health. Therefore, I get to experience life at a deeper level, at a more engaged and fulfilling level. You have a beautiful little personal poem about fulfillment. And, you know, I'd love to hear you say that on this tape. Yeah.
Well, it actually is in the very last chapter of the A to Z Health program, but I'd be more than happy to share that. It is, fulfillment is the greatest warmth for the coldest night. It's the fire that burns when there is no light.
And can you give us some context of what that is reflected against? Because for me, I had to hear it several times before it started to resonate in me that really at the end of the day, we're all looking for fulfillment. That's what we're looking for. And I thought it was outside myself, but it's actually an inner thing. And it's taken me a long time to feel that fulfillment without significant external proof. It's when I got it inside, then outside showed up rather than the other way around.
Yeah, very good, very good. At your darkest point, yeah, the dark night of the soul sort of levels that I know a lot of people experience, and for anyone who's experiencing that right now, in my looking in those moments, the deep contemplation, the introspection that took place is, okay, so breathing through that, experiencing that coldness, that darkness, the oblivion of nothingness, the depths of that, what is needed in your emptiness, what is needed. So for me, in that contemplation, it was fulfillment. Okay, so we're starting with fulfillment. So first we got to find what fulfills us. Okay, so it's fulfillment. Now, what is fulfillment once you've found it? It's the greatest warmth for the coldest night. It's the fire that burns when there is no light. It's, for me as a poet, very easy to articulate, because when understanding the yin yang, which I've been studying my whole life, which is the equal and opposite and the dualities of life which form oneness, you can't have one without the other. Like, you can't have male without female. You can't have dark without light. You can't have cold without warm, wet without dry. So all of these dualities come into play when it comes to the dance that is your life. So if you're not dancing, dance. If you're not singing, sing. If you're in a room of too much noise, have a room of quiet. Do what is required, the opposite that is required to re-nourish that area of your life. So when looking in introspectively, what is missing at the ultimate, whatever the most dramatic thing is you're feeling, seek the opposite. So in your emptiness, seek fulfillment. So for me, I'm like, okay, what is the ultimate word for this darkness to remedy? What is the remedying action is the opposite of what I'm going through? Fulfillment. So if it's dark and cold and empty, fulfillment is the greatest warmth for the coldest night. It's the fire that burns, that internal fire that gets you going. It's the fire that burns when there is no light. So just explaining the poetry, explaining the philosophy, I think, has been really helpful to a lot of my friends, family, colleagues, clients, because I do work with clients along with figuring out their own personal affirmations. So when a client comes to me and they've got certain language around their problem, when I help them write their affirmation, it's a personal affirmation for them. It's not just something you pull from the internet. It's an affirmation that is written in unison with the client. There's an Zaks inclusion in that affirmation, which is the opposite of what they're going through. And if they can repeat that morning and night, they're retraining their physiology through their words, and understand NLP really well. They're retraining themselves to live differently.
I guess for me, when I went through a turning point in my health, was a redefining of my actual identity of who I believed I was. And then I think if you're looking down and you're pessimistic, your identity is really skewed and it's not very fulfilling and it's not very motivating or inspiring or encouraging. But when you start to look up and you are optimistic and you have an identity of optimism of who you are, then all your behaviors and your beliefs and your actions change, and then they become congruent. So at my mature years, I'm in a situation now where I'm looking forward to each birthday. I'm looking forward to getting older because I still feel like I'm on the upward incline. I'll know when I'm coming down the other side, but I'm certainly not there yet, and I'm 68. So that blows my mind because I thought I was on the decline at 50. But since discovering A to Z health and your philosophy and applying it to my life, I'm optimistic, I'm looking up, and I'm still climbing that mountain. So hats off to you, Adam, for making that change in me. And I know that you've made that change in so many others, and there's going to be so many more as your materials get out there. So what is your overarching hope for what your book is about? What do you want to do with the book?
I want it to inspire change. And so when reading the book, that feeling of warmth, that feeling, that spark of energy wells up inside you enough to physically make changes. And it's not just physically like chucking some clothes on and going to the gym. It's physically addressing things habitually. So when I say physical, I mean everything that you do and think and say, that everything that you do and think and say has a massive effect on your life. It may not seem like it, but the consistency, the compound effect of the small actions, the small acts that you do throughout the house, the way that you walk, the way you move, the way you speak, the words that you choose, and the thoughts that you're thinking, and the things that you're putting into your body, both nutritionally and mentally, it's going to have a resonance. It's going to have a mirror effect. I love the idea of private practice equals public success. So when you walk out into the world, you're showing the wings that have been dusted and stretched and colored by the way that you've treated yourself internally. So when you eat your food, you slow down and you think about what's going in. When you read a passage or when you trying to obtain information, first we need to know why, which is what we've written the book. If we're going to say, we need to know why we're reading something or why we're doing something, because that will give us the depth of understanding of what and how to go about it. So there's just so much to it. There's just a massive flow-on effect with everything you do, think, and say.
Well, another takeaway from me was personal responsibility, taking responsibility, having the locus of control. So it's not up to my health coaches or doctors or the environment out there. And this is where the title, Doctors Study Sickness, You Should Study Health. And, you explain in the book, you're not saying all doctors, you're just saying generally there's a system of external reliance that's going to solve your problem. And at the end of the day, the doctor sitting opposite you, he's got a set of symptoms. He'll prescribe a drug or whatever and say, see you in 3 weeks. And it's so trite. There's been so many mistakes. But when you take personal responsibility for your own health, then you also expand your own consciousness and mind to a point where you start to understand. And there's no reason, if you've got access to the same data and you're intelligent enough, there's no reason why you can't know as much or even more about your condition than the doctor, because you've come at it, you're more invested for a start, and you've come at it from so many particular angles. And I know in your case with when you went through that horrendous burst appendix when you were younger, it really kicked all your curiosities into overdrive, and it's made you who you are today. So, your motivation would have been far more than anything externally or anything a doctor could prescribe. You go, holy crap, this is me, and why do I give a Fruit Loop about health? And you've got profound reasons, just as I or anyone else does if they have that health scare. But in addition to that, once you get beyond the fear factor or overcoming or getting away from bad health, when you start to experience really good health, perhaps health you haven't even had before, you're coming from a different driver, a different motivation. Would you say your motivations today are far different than when you had those original motivations that started you off?
Yeah, well, yes, but I would say that the motivation itself is the same in that it breeds itself, and understanding that is very important for everyone. That actually comes from inspiration. You inspire yourself. You're motivated by your own why to do what you do. So, and I talk about catalysts in the book. In that last chapter, when talking about catalysts, you don't necessarily need a catalyst to motivate you. But say if you did, use it effectively. Use that that desire to live better, and the gratitude around, say if you had a near-death experience as I did, that every day is a blessing. Now, when you know that every day is a blessing, the why behind that is like, well, why care about your health? It's because, well, you could be dead. So now that you're alive, how much can you do to live ultimately with that gift that you've been given?
There's an old saying, a cliche, it says, if only I knew then what I knew now. And I'm thinking, well, what if I know now what I know now? So how can I live my life differently from this point on, rather than saying, if only I knew then I could start with all this? Well, I can start with all this right now, and I can have this ultimate future, this incredible future based on what I do know now and what I'm yet to know even more. So I think certainly your book is a catalyst. It is inspiring. And I think it's something that people, it's a small investment. It's easy to get hold of. Could you tell us a little bit about how people can get hold of your book?
Yeah, sure. And if I can, I also want to just say something about the fact that I did an audio version as well. And the reason I did that is so that I understand people learn in different ways. I do depending on how I'm feeling on the day. Sometimes I read and sometimes I listen to audio. So I've created an audio version as well, and people can get, either one, or they can get both together. And it's read by me. It's read in the way that it was written. And so I believe that people should be hearing audio straight from the person that wrote it, because it's going to be say in the way it's written. So I really enjoyed doing the audio version. I put a lot of effort into that as well. And you can get both on my website. It's going to go on to iTunes and Audible and Amazon and all these sorts of other platforms as well. It is on my website so far. And we have a book launch coming up. And so stay tuned for that.
You'll find Adam at a2zhealth.com.au, and you'll find all of his links and social links below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. And Adam, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your information about your book. I've read it from cover to cover, and again this morning, so I would be fresh for this. And all I can say to the people out there is, when you've got someone with all that experience, a book or an audio is such a profound thing for so cheap a money, especially when people are paying $100 a session, $90 a session for a personal trainer, and that's once for an hour, when you can get a book of someone's life experience that for $20 or whatever it is, $25. It's so profound, so valuable. Thank you, Adam, and I'm going to look forward to see what else you've got coming up in the future.
Thank you, Freddie.
Pleasure.